Hey everyone, welcome to Tuesday Tea with me, Alisha Bowker Mudrock. This week we are continuing our self-love conversation, and we have Lisa here today to dive in even further on some topics around boundaries. Sometimes we hear that word, it sounds like a negative or something mean or harsh, and so we're really going to get into how it's actually a beautiful way to show love to ourselves and others. But first, I'm going to turn it over to her to just kind of give an introduction, share who she is, where she's kind of coming from, and then we'll just get into the tea. So, welcome,
Yeah.
Lisa.
Yeah. Thank you. I do love tea. Yeah.
Who doesn't, right?
Who
And she's
doesn't?
at a coffee shop, so she could also order some
Yeah,
coffee
there you
or
go.
some tea
I'm
if
gonna
she
have
needed
some
real
tea
tea.
afterwards.
I love it.
I'm Lisa Dewey. I'm in Norfolk, Virginia as we speak, but I'm in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia, which is like Virginia Beach, Norfolk, all those little areas down there by the ocean. So that's great. I'm a group practice owner of a place called Turning Point Counseling and Consulting. So we have a trauma-informed practice. We do a lot of EMDR, a lot of trauma modality stuff. We've been around for about 5 or 6 years. And
Awesome.
I'm also the creator of a conference called Clinician Connection, which I'd love to tell you about a little later.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
and that's me. I'm a social worker. I'm EMDR therapist. I think I mentioned that already, but it's Friday, so I get a freebie. And
Of course.
and yeah, everything is good. Everything is good. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thanks for being here. So it sounds like you have lots of expertise in quite a few different areas and your hand in a few different pots. But I guess when we're thinking about this topic of just this idea of self-love, particularly around this buzzword of boundaries, I'd love to just kind of hear what comes to mind, what first thoughts you have, and some of your expertise on that.
Yeah, for someone who is probably somewhat of a recovering codependent,
Mm,
boundaries was, I was like, that's a bad word. And it's a hard word. And I
yeah.
think, what comes to mind as I was just like, we're not taught to please ourselves. We're taught to please other people. So
Mm,
when you think about like, I need to set a boundary, well, somebody's going to get mad at me if I tell them that I can't come to their party or something like that.
mhm, mhm.
And so then we go ahead and go to the party and we're miserable.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, where I think, a boundary really is what I research and looking at it and talking to clients and understanding it better now. It's kind of what we give our power to is what I will say. That's like the big powerful statement as I tell people is like what do you want to do like with the 24 hours you have on this day? What do you want
Mhm,
to do you want to spend it miserable, with
mhm.
somebody you don't want to be with, or do you want to get something done, or do you just want to lay around? And that's where, the self-care aspect of it. I think that's where the boundaries kind of start. Well,
Hmm.
yeah. And so I think when I've talked to clients and I've even noticed it myself, it's, well, I have to set this boundaries because if I don't set this boundary, I'm going to go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs with this person,
Yeah.
or I'm going to, I'm not going to be able to function. And
Mhm.
so, um, what I've learned to talk to people is about having to set very hard boundaries with people, like really
Mm.
just like, ending relationships or ending amount of time or not giving money or,
Yeah.
stuff that's difficult and would make somebody mad. Somebody, if I was getting $100 a week and all of a sudden I'm not getting it, I'd probably be kind of mad too, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and that the residual that I have to deal with because I've now set this boundary that, hey, you said this was good for me, but I'm
It feels
miserable and this
terrible.
person's mad at me now, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's the hard part. But I always, when I talk with clients, I always say that boundaries start with determining like your own priorities. Like what do you want? Like what do you want to do with
Yes.
the 24 hours you had, like I was saying, or you
Yes.
know, what do you want your bank account to look like? Or,
Mhm. Mhm.
you know,
And I think sometimes, like what you're saying, even with that money example, it doesn't feel good to have someone upset with us, even if it's
no,
founded or
it doesn't.
unfounded reasons. But
Yeah.
it probably didn't feel good to keep giving free money away and
Right.
feel like you're being taken
Yeah.
advantage of, right? So it's kind of like, is it what you're going to feel bad one way or another, but one, you're feeling bad in a powerlessness sort of way, right? Versus in another, you're in your power and it might still be uncomfortable, but you are in charge again versus feeling like you're resentful or being taken advantage of or not being true to yourself and disrespecting yourself at the expense for somebody else, right?
Yeah. Hmm. That is more of an act of self-love as opposed to an act of, I'm going to get somebody mad at me if I do this. I'm taking care of myself,
Mm-hmm.
so
I was going to ask, I know you said you're uh, recovering the codependent, I think was the word you used.
yes, it is.
So,
Yeah.
what do you think were some of the big aha moments or things that helped you move from a place of, it sounds like, putting others kind of first
Yeah.
and yourself at the bottom to really owning what you need or want or setting some of those
When I
priorities for
figured out I
yourself?
was a codependent,
Hmm.
and because if you would know me, I'm a pretty, from the North originally. I'm from Philadelphia. So I say what's on my mind, and I'll be
Mm-hmm.
like, well, and you would never guess that I was a codependent
Hmm.
because I'd be like, well, that's just the way it is. Blah, 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 blah. You have to do
Mm-hmm.
that, blah, 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 blah. No bless your heart here. I would say the word and,
Yeah, this is
it's just like
it.
moving on. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But when I figured out I was codependent was when I opened up a solo practice. And I could not say no to getting clients. And I could not well, what about the money? And what about this? And what about that? And it's just like, I didn't know like how to set my schedule. And so I was just
Mm.
like, that's probably as I talk to these women that I'm working with now about boundaries, and I'm
Yeah,
reading this book about boundaries,
yeah.
I'm like, wait a second, I think I see myself here. Um,
Ah,
and so then I was just like, what, in doing whatever behavior, you can insert whatever behavior, what
right.
fear is behind that behavior. Like in my case, it was maybe the fear of not making enough money
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'm a new therapist in practice. So I have to take these clients because if I don't take these clients, they're going to go somewhere else, you
Right.
know,
Like a
so,
scarcity fear.
yes, the scarcity mindset. And so you have to shift it a little bit. And then that comes that power shift of, well, who are you going to give your power to? And it took me a long time. It took me definitely being a lot burnt out, actually. I went from
Mm.
opening up a group practice. And when you open up a solo practice and you go to a group practice, you really boost. There's a
Yeah,
period of time that you really have to there's a lot going on.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
I bet.
and so then I was just like, I think I had a coach or a therapist or something that's just like, listen, you need to shift some things around here, or you're going to be down and out here. So I did. But I didn't even consider that I had boundary issues prior to
Mm.
that, because I
Mm.
was always a person that speak your mind. And, with my family, I could set boundaries with them. That wasn't a problem. And
Right.
I have a family that acts just like me. So they don't
So
want us to
everyone's
do,
setting boundaries
so
all
there's no
over.
problem,
Yeah,
so like if they're not going to do something, they're going to tell you. So
yeah.
there's no problem there. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't encounter it until I was out of my element a little bit
Mm.
and in my business. And then I was just like, wait a second, I need to, yeah, I need to like see
Rethink.
who's in charge here. I'm in charge here. I get to set
Yeah,
my schedule. That was like for life changing,
yeah, yeah.
like, wait, I get to set my, everybody knows that but me. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
no. And I love that you're bringing up this idea that it, the role we're in can determine how comfortable or uncomfortable we
Yeah,
might be with boundaries too, right? In your
yeah,
family role, that wasn't really a problem. In
you
your
know,
professional role, it felt much different and like
yeah.
much more uncomfortable.
I didn't have the
And
boundary problem when I was working for someone else.
it was like as the boss man,
Because
that's
I
smart.
that they were set, here's what you do, here's your schedule, blah 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 blah.
Mm,
When I started working for myself, that's when I got the boundary problem because
uh,
I was like, oh, wait a minute, you want to come in tomorrow? Sure. I didn't plan on working tomorrow, but what the heck,
right,
another
right,
client,
right. Because it's
and then they
almost
expect
lawless. like you had to
Yeah,
make the whole
it is lawless.
infrastructure.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Flawless. I love it.
I mean, yes, I was like, same. I'm like, do I want to answer this email? Do I want to do that? Like, who's going to be mad? Me? The
Yeah.
CEO is
I'm the
me.
boss.
So it'll
I'm the
be my
boss.
own
Yeah.
thing. Uh,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah,
and
so then
I,
I started to like look at it like for what do I want and
mhm.
what do I want to work and write it down. And that's like the things that everybody tells everybody to do, which are so helpful. Write it
Yeah,
down. And
yeah,
then I'm like,
yeah.
you know what, now it's much better. And yeah, but we all tend to overschedule sometimes. And, so the other thing is like in learning about yourself and learning about boundaries, not getting mad at yourself about it. If you have a week where you're kind of
Mm.
like, what, you just slid down the boundary train wrong way a little bit,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
that, that's okay.
yeah.
Just get back on there.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
also our boundaries are potentially going to change in different seasons and different roles at different places in life.
Mhm.
And so I think it always comes back to knowing ourselves. Because again, if we don't even know what we want, what feels uncomfortable, what doesn't feel comfortable, what we like, what we don't like, then we can't even articulate the boundary we're trying to set, right? Because no one else, people will try to set them for us and try to, like predict things, but nobody is living our lives but us. And I think that internal reflection and that awareness is essential to actually understanding what we need to communicate, what we need to put a limit on, what we need to say yes or no to. Like we have to know ourselves because no one else, like for you, when you were in private practice, it was like, no one's giving me the guidebook. Like I have to just
Yeah.
know. And that,
Yeah.
and that's true for our lives, right? Like no one else should be running them or predicting or saying what we should or shouldn't be feeling or doing.
Right.
And
And I
it,
mean, sometimes, you do have things where somebody does set the boundary for you. You
mhm.
might work 9 to 5 or whatever, but
Yeah,
and then you might have a boundary that you have to set in family. And so there's different avenues of it. I don't know who I expected to set the boundary for me with that stuff, but maybe with somebody else. But
yeah.
I think sometimes what I have found with people now when I talk to clients and stuff is they expect everyone else to set the boundary for them. Well,
Mm-hmm.
she should tell, and I'm
Yeah,
trying to think of a good example, but well, she needs to tell me how much I need to do, or she's
right,
let you know that she wants to
right,
hear from you. So
right.
they expect everyone to kind of say, what they want. And as a way for people to kind of get out of it, we wait on other people.
Yep, yep.
And then pretty soon we're like, oh my gosh,
This isn't
we're in too
working.
much. And then the
Yeah.
other thing I have learned about or knew about, because, I think as women, we're raised to do this in some way, is to people please a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is that we are pleased, we're supposed to do what other people say. And if I tell
Mm-hmm.
you, I can't do it, I'm not giving you $100, I'm not seeing this client, I'm not, I don't know, babysitting that child one more week,
Yeah, yeah,
whatever it is.
yeah.
Um, it has to do when you're a people pleaser, it has to do with your worth
Mm-hmm.
and who you are. Because if you're pleasing to someone and you do something for someone, then that makes you feel good. But
Mm-hmm.
obviously, if you set a boundary, that's you
Going
know,
against that instinct.
going against that instinct.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I think sometimes people will be like, no, but it makes me happy to make other people happy. And I don't
Yeah.
doubt that
And
that's
that's
true
good.
on
And that's
some
great. I
level.
think that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's,
But at
but
what
yeah.
expense, right? Like at the end of the
Right.
day, you're still losing if you're only just thinking about everybody else because someone else isn't a blueprint of you where like everything you did for them is exactly what you wanted to, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's finding that balance. And someone once described boundaries to me too as a way to actually show your true self to someone. So it's actually getting closer to someone instead of it being this thing you're pulling each other
I like
apart.
that. I like
And it was
that.
a
Yeah.
beautiful description, right? Like if
Hmm.
I show you who I am and all the things, like I have a hard line here. I actually hate sushi, so I don't ever want to get sushi with you, but I'll get Mexican.
I don't like it
Or
either.
I
Yeah.
like your kid and no, I'm never going to keep them overnight. Or I don't do dog sitting or whatever, but like
But yeah.
I'll do other things. That's
Hmm.
actually a way where they can know you better and know your how and when to engage and like connect with you best instead of we all pretend like we love dogs and you secretly like hate their
Yeah.
dogs
And
and
they're
all they
like,
do is
oh,
invite you
wait,
to dog
come
park.
babysit this dog. And you're
Exactly,
like,
exactly.
I'm
Right.
allergic. Yeah.
Right. And maybe it could be something like obviously deeper than that. Just that's a frivolous little example, but those are the things. The more we shove
But
ourselves in the back,
those are important because
yeah,
those come up every day.
exactly.
I
And those
mean,
are
I
the
think it's like if
blocks of the
those
relationship.
hard line boundaries that I had to start setting about, like, I've had to set some hard boundaries with people in my life, and I think everybody does. Like, okay, example, I'm not giving you any more money, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's a hard boundary. But these little ones, like I don't like sushi or
Right.
they come up every day,
Right. Right.
and then it's like, oh wait, your partner's like, okay, no, we're not going to the sushi restaurant. If I
Right.
want sushi, I need to go with my friends, you know?
Right. 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 And if you keep ignoring sharing that with someone, it's like a lie that the relationship is built on, right? It might seem insignificant, but those little things like,
Right. Yeah.
no, I hate Bravo TV or I don't want to do that anymore. Like that's the stuff that over time you're like, I thought we loved our Thursday night tradition. You're like, dude, I've hated this since day one. Like that doesn't help anybody,
Yeah.
right? That doesn't help you
Right.
get closer with that person. That doesn't help you feel good.
And
So
you feel really resentful and,
yes, it
it
builds
can
up
breed
over time.
and it does
Mm-hmm.
breed, because
Mm-hmm.
then you start to resent that and then you resent, oh, I
Mm-hmm.
don't like this thing that they do. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's nice to be able to be authentic with people and it's easy to be authentic with people, in most times to say, no, man, I don't want to watch Bravo or,
Yes, yes.
no, I don't, I really don't go out on
Want
Thursday
to do that
nights.
right now.
That's
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And
you know,
obviously compromise is a thing and like meeting people halfway and there's lots of agendas and relationships that we're trying to sort through, but show up with your agendas too so that the most authentic version of both of you can be seen and then the best plan can be created,
yeah.
right?
And that's the thing. I think the lesson with boundaries is that your agenda is also important.
So important.
Yeah.
The way we make everyone
Hmm.
else is important. Like it is when you
Yeah.
really think about it, you're like, wow, how much do I not care about myself to not
Yeah.
want to
And when
like give
somebody,
that same importance to it?
yeah, it's funny because somebody was asking one of my clients, she came in and she was like, they were asking me what I want about whatever. And I said, well, did you tell them? And she said, no. And I'm like, but why not? Because they were asking you, do you
Right.
want
Right.
whatever? I don't remember what it was.
Right.
But I said,
Chocolate or
she goes,
vanilla?
I don't know I didn't know what I wanted. And I'm like, well, I said, well, what did you say? And she goes, I told him I would think about it. I said, perfect.
Yeah, yeah,
Then
yeah.
think about it. Yeah.
Right, right.
I said, so go back to them. And we talked a little bit about what she did want. I said, now you know what you
Mm-hmm.
want and you can go back and say,
Mm-hmm.
this is what I want. But,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think, yeah, I think the myth of boundaries is that people will get mad at you, but they won't.
And honestly,
Mhm.
it almost makes things easier. If we all know where we
Yeah.
stand, if we know what's expected, if I understand what you need from me or what you don't want, or like how you're feeling or what I can expect, it's a better transaction in the long run than
Yeah.
someone being mad later or being halfway there or not, I don't know, not participating in the way or not feeling close to me. Like that feels more confusing and messy and it's not as rewarding as if we're all just like
Yeah.
authentic about where we're starting from and going from
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree. I think it's a kind of like we always preach, self-power, self-love, and I think boundaries is, one of the number one ways to get it.
Yeah,
Um,
no, yeah. And I think it's like that great ending thought too of your clients, like, I don't know. And I think that even is that deeper dig, like not just practice setting them, but knowing what they are so we
I'm a,
can.
recovering people, I'm a
Yeah,
recovering people pleaser, so
yeah,
I'm pleasing
yeah,
everyone.
yeah. So I don't
Nobody ever
know what
bothered
I
to
want.
ask me what I wanted. Yeah.
Right? It's so
Yeah.
true. So, so
Yeah.
true.
Got to keep your power.
Well, what would you say would be like a last little nugget of wisdom or reflection that
Oh,
you'd want to leave folks with?
I think with boundaries, I think it's like what you said earlier about it being, it's an act of self-love. And it's,
Hmm.
it's having you keep your power. And so
Hmm.
that's what my closing thoughts is your ability to keep your power.
Yes,
Um,
I love
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And then tell us a little bit about how people can connect in this conference and
Yeah.
love to hear
Yeah,
more.
I'm in Virginia Beach area at Turning Point. Counseling and consulting is the group practice. So if you're ever down that way, come see us. But we have a conference that's coming along in April. It's less than 90 days away, April 18th and 19th
Wow.
of this year. I was like 2024. Yeah, 2025. So this year, yeah, it's coming up. Ajetta Robinson is our keynote speaker. We've got fantastic workshops, stuff like polyamory, like doing it ethically. Um, Deb Frankel's doing something on grief and loss. We've got
Mm.
stuff on, how to help trans folks. We've got stuff about how to support, BIPOC clinicians. So there's just a really good, well-rounded a bunch of workshops, stuff on neuroscience, stuff on substance abuse. It's a clinical conference. And so it's
Okay.
for clinicians, for clinicians kind of in the therapy room and then outside the therapy room. So talking about stuff like self-compassion and probably throwing some boundaries in there too.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's a great conference. We had a great time last year. Tickets are on sale. Can I tell you about our special that we
yeah,
have this
please.
going on?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So this to the end of February, if you use code VDAY,
Okay.
it's $50 off.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
And I'll
Yeah.
make sure those links are in both the YouTube channel and in the email so folks
Okay.
can pop on there and buy if they're interested in joining or get more information and
Yeah.
all your other contact info as well. So really appreciate you being here today, taking the time. We're
Thank you
recording
for
on
having me.
Valentine's Day, so it's a day about love, but you
Yes,
guys will see this
VDAY.
next
Good Boundaries
Tuesday.
Day. Good
Yes.
times.
But I hope everyone has a great week and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Take care.
Thanks.